I'd been hearing that a major cycle in my life was coming to an end, but it wasn't really real to me until this one thing happened to me. Hey, what's up, family? I was recently on a trip to Indiana. I have deemed this summer the summer of self love, to where I'm doing things to pour back into myself. Instead of focusing on other people and doing for them, it's looking at what opportunities can I seize to pour back into myself. And I love music, so one of the things that I've been doing so far for the summer is going to concerts by myself. It can be a little bit daunting initially, but it's been something that's been very rewarding. So, as I have been going through my healing journey, I've been hearing that a major cycle was coming to a close, but just with anything, I continued to go forward. I took note of it, but to me, in my 3D surroundings, nothing really seemed different, I guess you would say. I mean, obviously, there were some things here and there, but as far as what I would consider a major cycle, nothing that resonated with that had happened in my life. So I was just going along my day to day activities, just doing what I was doing. And so it wasn't until this most recent trip to Indiana that I took, which is where I grew up from the ages of 12 until I was roughly 21, 20, 22 years old. And then I moved out to the East Coast. So while I was out there in Indiana, there were some events that happened that basically, the way I look at it, it was divine alignment. Because had these events not happened, then I wouldn't have been put in a specific place, in a specific setting, to have the realization that I did, that I, in fact, had closed a major cycle and it was behind me. So, the thing that happened to me that got me to realize, one, just how far I have come in my journey, and the person that I used to be, and why I was carrying out and living my life the way that I was no longer that person. And the realization that hit me, it was about 2 o'clock in the morning. We were coming home from the concert, and let's just say that was the reason that we needed to stop by a car wash. And so while my friends were basically taking care of the car and doing some detailing work, I was on a journey and just kind of started walking around. I didn't even realize where I was at until I started kind of looking at some of the buildings that were surrounding it. And lo and behold, I realized that I was right next to a Wendy's that I used to work at. And I walked up to it, and then all of a sudden I started to realize that this Wendy's is abandoned, like it's no longer being used and it's empty. And in that moment, the realization kind of smacked me in the face that this Wendy's is where it was my very first job. When I was 15 years old, I remember very vividly having to get a work permit from school in order to be allowed to work, because I hadn't reached the age of 16 yet. So I remember very vividly working there, and I used to work crazy hours and just continuously work and work. Anytime, any shift that I could pick up, I was going to this, I was going there to work. The money was nice, but anybody that's had a fast food job kind of starting out and stuff, it's not something to write home about, but to a kid that's starting out that hasn't had a job, it's something. And so a lot of fond memories came up, a lot of other memories kind of came up, and then all of a sudden it hit me. Brandon, this is your signpost that you've just closed a major cycle. And with that realization in that moment, I got very emotional, and I started thinking about what this cycle represented and what it meant for me. And it was in that moment that I realized that this place wasn't just a job for me, it was an escape. It was a place that I went to escape, I guess you could say, my life and the things that I was going through, to where at this job, at this place, I could be somebody different. I didn't have to be the version of Brandon that was in this very strict religion, that was in this family dynamic, that it wasn't toxic. I was definitely cared for and all my needs, but the emotional attentiveness wasn't there, to where it left things to be desired. And so it's just as I started to sit there and look at this building, and I started just walking around and kind of peeking in through the windows and stuff and just looking at and reminiscing on that environment and the things that I used to do there. I saw the grill because when you very first start out, you start out on the grill, and I just looked in on that grill, and I just remember the hours that I used to spend, cleaning that grill because I'm very much a person that's, I don't want to say OCD, but I've been known to be a perfectionist, and I do remember that I used to clean that grill to no end, to where I remember on numerous occasions some of the managers used to be like, well, man, I've never seen that grill that clean before. And it was just a sentiment to where when I get started on something, I tend to go overboard sometimes, and it just made me remember, like I said, the fact that in that instance, and then it started relating to other instances through my life, that I was showing up in a way to escape, from my life, whether it was that job at Wendy's to escape my life or just any interactions that I was going through. I wasn't being my authentic self, that I was forming this version of myself that I wanted people to accept, or I felt like people would accept, or how I had to be in order for people to accept me. And it was in that moment that I realized that I had started, and that was the start of the cycle of me escaping my life and not living my full authentic self. And it really got me to realize, just looking back in the past couple of weeks and past couple of months, the version of Brandon that was working that job and was escaping the world and was escaping himself and not showing up as his authentic self, all the instances that have come up within the past weeks, past months, that has required Brandon to be his authentic self, good, bad, or indifferent, and really step into that power. And it got me to realize that I truly had closed a cycle. And I am thankful to the divine, to spirit, for giving me that visual cue that that cycle had in fact been closed in my life, because there were things around me that I should have been able to see that the old Brandon wouldn't have been able to do this, or at least do this with such confidence, to where I did those things, but because it was part of, or I looked at it as part of the normal day in the job, there's different things that we're required to do, like on our jobs in different scenarios, and we just do them because that's just what's required of the job in that particular moment. And so, and I would say that's how I took it, is there were scenarios or things that would pop up on the job that I had to do, and I did them, but I didn't realize by me stepping forward and doing those things that the old Brandon would have not done that. I don't want to say cowered away, but would have been apprehensive and not wanting to step forward, step into that fire energy and take on that charge, take on that mantle. And so it really showed me that, yes, Brandon, you did in fact close this cycle. Here is your sign, as I don't think it was Jeff Foxworthy. I can't remember the guy back in the day, but there was a gentleman, there was a comedian back in the day, and he would say something about, say a joke, and he would say, "Here's your sign." And in essence, that's what I took in that moment from the divine, is divine was giving me my sign as far as that cycle closing that I did, and it was forcing me to pause in that moment and just realize how far I had come, and how long I have not been living my authentic self. I've been living this characterization of who Brandon is and who I wanted the world to see, and not truly who Brandon is. So it really got me to think about it and think about things in a whole new light, and see my life in a whole new light, and really step more into my sovereignty and realize that I am in my power, despite what my 3D reality may be trying to show me and trying to reflect to me. I know now who I am. I've had a taste of living my authentic self. I have people that keep coming into my reality that force me to live my authentic self. At this point in time, it's only me that continues to deny who I truly am, and keeps myself and denies myself from living that authentic life. And it's a life that I want to live, a life that I know that I can live, and a life that I want to live because I enjoy bringing light to other people's life. I've had to go down a path to where I've had to learn how to enforce boundaries to protect that light, but it doesn't mean that I can't share that light. I just have to be selective now in how I share that light. But never should I allow anything to keep me from being my authentic self. So it's definitely an interesting journey, and I'm glad that the divine put me in the place that it did in order to have that realization, because it really empowered me and it really charged me up, and I'm thankful for it. I mean, I guess that's no, there's no other grandeur, grand way or grand saying that I can truly think of other than I'm truly thankful. So, thankful. Thank you, Spirit, for giving me that experience in that particular moment to help me realize that I have, in fact, closed a major cycle in my life that has been open ever since I was a 15-year-old kid trying to escape my life that I was forced to live, that I wasn't happy with. So that brings to a question to mind that I would like to ask you all that's watching this is, what cycles in your life have you closed but you're not aware of, that the divine is trying to show you that you've closed, so that way you too can become empowered in whatever way that you feel that you're maybe lacking in the moment, or trying to show you where in your life, just like I was, that I was escaping my life because I wasn't happy with it. And instead of making the changes, doing the healing work to become confident enough to step into my authentic self, I kept shrinking down and avoiding that. So I can understand how fearful and how intimidating that can be, because I have lived it. Like I said, it was from the time I was 15. I'm 44 years old now, so that was like 30 some years that I've been living in that particular state. So don't beat yourself up if you find yourself doing that. The important part is recognizing it, and through that recognition, you can start being aware of it, and then intentionally putting thoughts behind your actions and what you're doing, and asking yourself, how can you show up differently, or how are you showing up today because of your thoughts of how others perceive you versus how you truly want to show up in this world. So just a short story. On the trip, there was one of my friends, and she said that one of her lifelong goals is her job that she wants is to hug children. So if that is in fact her desire, something that she wants to do, then what things is she doing in her life to escape the reality to where, and taking her further from her dream of being able to have a job where she can hug children. So it's definitely taught me a lot, and I wanted to share this with you all. And I invite you just to kind of take a look at your life. What cycles have you closed that the universe is trying to show you as a way of empowering you? And then also to, what ways are you escaping your life because you're not happy with the version of yourself that you're presenting to the world, and you're presenting it because it's not what you want, but you feel like that's how you have to be in order for the world to accept you. So don't be afraid. We're all here to support you. We're all going through our individual journeys and our individual paths. It's going to take us different places, but at the end of the day, we're all family. We're all here for one another, and we all love you. So just know that I love you. I love you. I love you so much. It's not always easy, but we always find a way through it. Not by ourselves, but with the help of the divine. So I love you, family. I love you. I love you. And I hope you have a good day.